We continue now at the top of Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph and Meseches Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 12a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara had asked, let's say you have a piece of meat, and it's next to a piece of meat of Zivchei Shlomim after the Zrikas Hadamim, so that meat actually is mutter, and the person says, Zeh kozeh, I want this meat to be like that meat, meaning the meat of the carbon Shlomim. So the question of the Gemara is, do we say that it's Asr, because the person just means carbon Shlomim in general, and the meat of carbon Shlomim in general is Asr, even though right now it's mutter, because they've already done Zrika? Or no, we say it goes by right now. Right now, this meat of Shlomim that's in front of us is mutter, because they've already done the Zrikas Damim, and therefore he's not creating an Isser on this piece of meat. And so the Gemara now brings a proof from our Mishnah, because our Mishnah talked about a similar case by Nosar and Pigel, where again, there's one piece of meat next to the other. Let's say it's a case of Nosar, and again, you're saying Zeh kozeh, this piece of meat should be like the Nosar, and there we do say it's prohibited. And so the Gemara now notes, V'hanosar upigel, and now many of the Mefarshim take out the word Pigel, because it's not, the proof is not really going to be from Pigel, it's from Nosar. So V'hanosar la'achar Zrikas Damimhu. Nosar over here is something that's after the Zrikas Damim. What it really means to say is that Nosar is something that at certain points in time it is mutter, and then at certain points in time it is asr. And yet we're saying that it creates the prohibition over here. And so the same thing should be true by the Zivchei Shlomim. So even though right now that meat is mutter because it's after the Zrikas Damim, but we're going by the essence of the carbon Shlomim, and the essence of the carbon Shlomim is something that is asr, and so therefore it is asr. And the Mefarish over here explains, V'hanosar la'achar zrikas damim hu de'itzar de'nosar have shenitosar chutz lizmano shelo nechol upigol sheyatza chutz lemechitzaso v'amar zeh kozeh. Again, he's saying this is like this. The ka'amar dehave asr, and it's saying in our Mishnah that it's considered asr. It becomes like the nosar. V'hanami de la'achar zrikas damim v'havelei shas hakosher kodem lachein. When you're talking about nosar, that is something which at one point in time it was mutter, and we're talking after zrikas damim. At other points in time it's asr. V'katani da asr, and it says that it's asr over here. Alma bidahashta kamatvis. You see that if we're saying it's asr, you see that we do it bidahashta according to what it is at the moment. And the Mefarish notes, as we just said, V'ika di'amri, there are those that say, Hai pigel lav dafka. The word pigel over here in the Gemara is lav dafka. To lo have pigel elahecha shenishchar al menas la'ochlo chutz lizmano. Because pigel is when a person shechts it already at the time of shchita, the person has the wrong machshava. To lo have shas hakosher milam. That's something that's never kosher at any point in time. They have to specifically ask from nosar, where it had a shas hakosher and it has a time when it's not. V'lo kaparach elam nosar to have shas hakosher. They're only really asking from nosar, which has a shas hakosher. Kosher, upigel agror and asbavalav dafka. They just threw in pigel over here, but that's not the real proof. And again, so the point over here is that obviously, if you're being matfis in the noser, you're being matfis in the fact that the etzem meat over here is kachim and it's usher, even though at points in time it was mutter. Now we will note over here something the Gemara is going to say in a moment. When a person is saying zeh kozeh by noser, he is certainly not saying that the piece of meat should be like noser, because noser is a prohibition that's not created by a neder. He must be saying that he's zeh kozeh, this is like this, in terms of the fact that this was a carbon, that this was hektish. So that was something that was an isser that was created by a neder. So the fact that it's noser is not really the relevant point. The relevant point over here is that it was a piece of meat that was usher through a neder, through some kind of, the person was makdish it and made it into a carbon, and it had a shasa kosher, and we're saying that no, it creates an isser because we're going by the fact that in general, this is a piece of kachim, this is a piece of meat of a carbon, and it's also the fact that at certain points in time it has a shasa kosher seems to be irrelevant. And the Gemara answers, Amar le Rav Huna Breder Rav Nasan. So Rav Huna Breder Rav Nasan said to him, Ben noser shel ola. In the case of our Mishnah, when we're saying they have one piece of meat next to a piece of noser, and you're saying zeh kozeh and it creates an isser, we're not talking about noser of shlomim where there's times where it's kosher and there's times where it's not kosher. We're talking about noser of a carbon ola, which is always going to be prohibited, and therefore it is obvious that that can create an isser. Amar le Rav Huna l'Rava benoser shalola. So the Mefarish says, Ma'iri de lo havele shasa kosher me'olam. We're talking about a situation where this piece of meat never was kosher to eat. The ola kula kalil, because an ola it all goes on the mizbeach. Avali havele shasa kosher aminan me'ikaro kamatvis. But if you were going to say, and it really should be bi'ikaro kamatvis, but if it was something that had a shasa kosher, so then maybe we would say bi'ikaro kamatvis. And we will just note over here that the other Rishonim have it reversed. Really over here it should be bidahashta kamatvis, and really up over here in the Mefarish, it should be Be'ikaro Kamatvis, because again, the original proof was from Noser that we're saying even though it has a Shas HaKosher still, even though it's Shlomim and it has a Shas HaKosher, still it creates an Isser, because the proof was B'Ikaro Kamatvis. We're trying to create the Isser through the main concept of the fact that this is Kachim and it's Asr. But then the Gemara is saying, no, we're talking about Ola over here, so it doesn't even have to be Be'ikaro Kamatvis. It could even be B'Dahashta Kamatvis, but since the meat of an Ola is always Asr, it is certainly going to create the Isser. And the Gemara continues, Amar Le, he said to him, Im kain lisni bebesar ola. If the case in the Mishnah is we're talking about the nose of a carbon ola, why not just say the meat of a carbon ola, which always is usher? What is added by saying noser? And the Gemara answers, Lomi boy kamar. The Mishnah is structured as a lomi boy as follows: Lomi boy besar ola. I don't even need to tell you that if the person says that this should be like the meat of the carbon ola, this should be like this, the usher, that's certainly going to be usher. The haba carbon kamatvis, because then he's taking one piece of meat and saying it should be like this other piece of meat, which is a carbon, as we noted, that is something where the Isser is created through something like a neder, and that can create an Isser. But noser upigel de ola itzricha. But we're telling you a bigger chiddush that even the noser upigel of the carbon ola, that also it's necessary to say that that can create the Isser, because salka dai tachamina, because I might have thought ki Isser noser ki Isser pigel. Maybe the person is saying this piece of meat should have on it the Isser, the prohibition of noser, or the prohibition of pigel, not just the fact that this is prohibited because it's a carbon. V'havalei kematvis bedavar ha'aser v'lo mitzvah. Then it's like you're trying to be matvis with something that was aser and not something that was a neder, that was the davar ha'nader, but davar ha'aser, and that's a problem. It doesn't create the prohibition. So kamash malan. So that's really the chiddush of the Mishnah. The chiddush of the Mishnah is, even though the person said nosar, and therefore it might have been taken as matvis bedavar ha'aser, which doesn't generally create an isser, we don't see it that way. We view it as a matvis bedavar ha'nader, because we say we're talking about the fact that this was a carbon, it was a davar ha'nader, and therefore it does in fact create the isser. And the Gemara continues, Meisve, we have a question from the following Brisa, Ezo Isser Amr B'Torah. What is the Isser that is said in the Torah? The Mefarish over here says, Ezo Isser Amr B'Torah, D'chsiv L'chol Shvuas Isser, D'mashma she'ino d'b'davar she'neser b'kach. It says L'chol Shvuas Isser, and it's mashma like we're talking about, that you're being matfis, you're saying one thing should be prohibited like something else. What is that referring to? Amr, let's say the person says, Hareini shelo ochel basar v'shelo eshte yayin, and the person says, I'm not going to eat meat, or I'm not going to drink wine, ki yom shemeis bo aviv, like the day when his father died. In other words, he's saying, today I'm not going to eat, just like I didn't eat on the day that my father died. Kiyom shemeis bo rab, or like the day that his Rebbe died. Kiyom shenerag bo Gedalia ben Achikam, or like the day when Gedalia has died, meaning to say like Tzom Gedalia, we fast on Tzom Gedalia. Kiyom shere'isu Yerushalayim bechorbono, like the day that I saw Yerushalayim when it was destroyed, also a day that the person did not eat. So again, he's being matzvah, he's saying, this day should be like that day, I'm not going to eat. V'yomar Shmuel, and Shmuel said, "V'hu shenadur ba'oso hayom." This is only true that if he makes that, if he had made a neder on that day, meaning to say, sometime previously, let's say it was the day that his father died and he made a neder, and so now he's saying, I want this day to be like that day. This day over here also should be like that day, just like I made a neder 1 year ago and didn't eat. So today should be like that day. And so the Gemara wants to understand the brisa. Hechidami, what exactly is the case? Isn't the case that he's standing there on a Sunday and it's like the anniversary of when his father died? Now, even though there's many Sundays that really there was heter, there was no neder, but we're saying that it's aser. You see that what we're saying is when he's matvis, it goes on the ikr day, meaning to say he's obviously referring to the day when he made a neder and when he actually was prohibited to eat, even though there were other Sundays in between where there was no isser. And the Gemara answers, no, the Shmuel hachi itmar. It could be that Shmuel meant as follows. Amar Shmuel was saying, V'hu shenadur uba me'ozo hayom ve'elach. It means that there was a neder from that time when his father died, and every single year since then, on every yard he also had a neder, and he said that he wasn't going to eat, and so there was no time, there was no moment where there was heter in between, and so therefore it is no proof. It could be kidahashta. It could be that the neder is going on a continuous cycle where there was no moment where it was mutter for him to eat in terms of days of the yard site, and so therefore it would be no proof to our issue. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ravina says, Tashma, come in here a proof from the following Mishnah. This is a Mishnah coming up. Kechalas Aaron u'chitruma. So let's say a person says this should be also like the chal of Aaron and like his truma. So mutter, so in that case it's mutter, because again, that's not a davar hanader. Those are items that are prohibited from the Torah. And anytime you're matvis, you say this should be like this. It has to be something that is nader. It has to be something that was that the Isra was created through a neder. And that's what the Gemara infers. Haketrumas lachmei toda aser. Let's say he says it's like the truma of the lachmei toda, the bread of the carbon toda. So there the Isra is created by a neder. So then it would create a prohibition. It would be aser, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis.